Please like and subscribe to help the channel. Title: The Midnight Broadcast Chapter 1. The vanishing frequency. The late 1980s were a breeding ground for urban legends, whispered in hushed tones in dimly lit diners and late-night college dorm rooms. Among the most chilling was the tale of the Midnight Broadcast, a phantom radio station that defied explanation. Unlike pirate radio signals that crackled with raw energy, playing underground music or broadcasting political manifestos, this station, a spectral presence on 89.1 FM, aired something far more sinister. The broadcast, as the legend went, was a fleeting phenomenon, a brief intrusion into the silence of the night, occurring precisely between 2:13 a.m. and 2:18 a.m. It began with an unsettling prelude, a faint, static-filled humming that seemed to vibrate not just through the speakers, but deep within the listener's bones. This sonic unease would then give way to the main horror, a woman's voice. Her tone was described as cold, clinical, and utterly devoid of emotion. She recited a list of names, each one delivered with a weight that belied its simplicity. Some names were whispered, as if sharing a deadly secret, while others were spoken with a dreadful finality, each syllable a pronouncement of doom. The legend of the Midnight Broadcast transformed into a terrifying reality when people began claiming that those whose names echoed through the static disappeared within 3 days of the broadcast. These weren't mere disappearances, they were complete erasures. No trace, no sign of struggle, no lingering evidence, just an unsettling absence. Panic began to stir as the disappearances mounted, each one fueling the dread surrounding the mysterious broadcast. Law enforcement agencies were baffled. Some dismissed the claims as a hoax, mass hysteria gripping susceptible minds. Skeptics pointed to the power of suggestion and the human tendency to find patterns in chaos. Yet, the fear persisted, fed by the chilling consistency of the disappearances. In 1991, Darren McCullough, a bright and ambitious college radio host in Ohio, became obsessed with the legend. He was known for his late-night show and his fascination with the strange and unusual. Driven by a mix of curiosity and a desire to debunk the myth, Darren attempted to record the broadcast, setting up his equipment with meticulous care, his heart pounding with a strange mix of excitement and trepidation. But the recording never aired. 2 days later, Darren's dorm room was found empty. His car remained in the parking lot, untouched. His wallet, keys, and personal belongings lay undisturbed on his desk, as if he had simply vanished into thin air. The eerie similarities to the legend were undeniable, sending a chilling wave through the college community. A week later, a cassette tape was discovered at a dusty flea market on the outskirts of town. It was labeled simply 89.1 FM. The contents of that tape, when finally played, confirmed the horrifying truth of the Midnight Broadcast, sending chills down the spines of those who dared to listen and forever linking Darren McCullough's name to the chilling mystery. Chapter 2. The lost tape. The story of the Midnight Broadcast faded into the background, relegated to the dusty corners of the internet, and whispered in online forums dedicated to the paranormal. Years passed, and the legend became a chilling campfire tale, a story to frighten thrill seekers. Then, in 2017, I stumbled upon the legend while working on a podcast about urban legends. My show explored the darker side of folklore, the unsettling stories that lurked beneath the surface of everyday life. I had heard my fair share of creepy tales, but the Midnight Broadcast had a unique gravity, a disturbing sense of verisimilitude that set it apart. One evening, I received a call from Ohio. The caller was an older man, his voice raspy and weathered, like rusted metal scraping against stone. He claimed to possess the infamous tape, the recording of the Midnight Broadcast. Initially, I dismissed his claim as a prank, another attention seeker trying to capitalize on a popular urban legend. But then, he offered proof. Over the phone, he played a snippet of the recording. The sound quality was poor, static hissing and crackling like a swarm of angry insects. Beneath the static, a faint, warbling hum emerged, like an old lullaby played on a broken music box, each note slightly off-key, creating an unsettling dissonance. And then, the voice cut through the noise. It was a woman's voice, cold, clinical, and unshakably real. It was the voice of the legend, and it sent a shiver down my spine. The caller allowed the tape to play for a few more seconds, and I realized the names she was reading weren't random. They were the names of missing persons from the early 90s, individuals whose disappearances had been attributed to various causes, their cases unsolved and forever haunting. Then, the name, Darren McCullough, the third name on the list. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just a story, it was a terrifying reality. The call ended abruptly, the line going dead in my ear. I tried calling back immediately, my fingers trembling as I punched in the number, but the line had been disconnected. It was as if the caller had vanished as mysteriously as the victims of the midnight broadcast. I became consumed by a burning need to find the tape. I had to hear the rest of it. I had to know the truth. Driven by this obsession, I traced the flea market where the tape was supposedly found, a sprawling labyrinth of forgotten treasures and discarded memories. The owner, a woman in her 60s with eyes that seemed to hold a lifetime of secrets, remembered selling a batch of old cassettes years ago. Her hands trembled as she spoke, and her voice was barely a whisper. When I pressed her for more information, she refused, her face etched with fear. "You don't want that curse in your life," she muttered, her fingers clutching a rosary as if warding off an evil presence. Her words were cryptic but chilling, reinforcing the sense of dread that clung to the tape. Chapter 3, The Dead Air Incident. A week later, the mystery deepened. I received an unmarked package at my apartment, delivered by an anonymous courier. Inside, I found an old cassette tape, its plastic case cracked and worn. Scrawled across the label in smudged black ink were 4 words that sent a jolt of adrenaline through my veins. "Play me at 2:13 a.m. My heart hammered against my ribs. Every instinct screamed at me to destroy the tape, to walk away from the darkness it promised. But the allure of the unknown, the morbid curiosity that drives all urban legend enthusiasts, was too strong to resist. Against every ounce of common sense, I set up my recorder, an old analog machine I hadn't used in years, its gears whirring with anticipation. I placed the tape in the player, the silence in the room amplifying the sound of the tape clicking into place. I checked my watch. 2:12 a.m. I pressed play and let the tape roll. The hum returned, filling the room with a low-frequency drone that vibrated in my chest. This time, it was louder, more distorted, as if the sound itself was being stretched and twisted into something malevolent. The static intensified, a white noise blizzard threatening to drown out everything else. Then, a voice crackled through the speakers, cutting through the static like a knife. It was the woman's voice, chillingly clear now, devoid of warmth or humanity. "You're listening to the midnight broadcast," she announced, her tone flat and emotionless. "And now, the names." She began to read. The first names were familiar, names from missing persons reports I had studied in my research, their stories tragic and unsolved. Then, the names became more recent, names of people I knew, acquaintances, friends, people I had spoken to just days before. A wave of nausea washed over me as the horrifying pattern became clear. Then, she said my name. The sound of my own name, spoken in that cold, spectral voice, was like a physical blow. My breath hitched in my throat, my heart seized in my chest, and my body froze, paralyzed by a terror so profound it transcended anything I had ever experienced. Time seemed to distort and warp around me, each second stretching into an eternity of fear. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the broadcast cut into silence. The tape hissed and whirred, but the voice was gone, leaving only the oppressive silence and the echo of my name hanging in the air. Chapter 4. The shadow and the static. That night, my apartment became a prison of my own making. I barricaded the door with furniture, my hands shaking as I shoved heavy objects against the entrance, as if trying to keep out a ghost. Every creak of the building, every whisper of wind that snaked through the gaps in the window frame, sent a fresh wave of terror crashing down my spine. Sleep offered no escape. Nightmares plagued me, each one a variation on the same theme. The woman's voice, the list of names, my own name echoing in the darkness. I tried to rationalize it, to convince myself it was a hoax, an elaborate prank designed to prey on my fascination with the macabre. But the cold reality remained. My name had been on that tape. The following night, the dread reached its crescendo. At exactly 2:13 a.m., my old analog radio, A relic from my childhood that I hadn't used in years flickered to life. The power surged through it, the tubes glowing with an eerie light. The dial, as if guided by an unseen hand, began to move on its own, the needle sweeping across the frequencies until it locked onto 89.1 FM. Static filled the room, a deafening roar that pressed against my eardrums. Then, cutting through the static, the voice returned, clearer and more menacing than before. "We are coming for you," it declared, the words hanging in the air like a death sentence. The room plunged into darkness. The power surged again, and the lights went out, leaving me in absolute blackness. Panic clawed at my throat, threatening to choke me. Then, a flicker of movement in the darkness. My reflection in the black screen of the television shifted. My mouth stretched into a silent scream, my eyes wide with horror, but I couldn't feel my own muscles moving. I was a prisoner in my own body, forced to watch the grotesque transformation. It wasn't me. The reflection was a twisted mockery of myself, a grotesque puppet controlled by an unseen force. Chapter 5. The last transmission the next morning, I didn't hesitate. I packed a bag, throwing clothes and essentials into a duffel bag with frantic haste. I left my apartment, abandoning my life, my work, everything, driven by a primal need to escape. I drove for hours, putting as much distance as possible between myself and the city. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, my eyes constantly darting to the rearview mirror, searching for any sign of pursuit. The paranoia was all-consuming, the fear a constant companion. Days turned into a week. I moved from motel to motel, never staying in one place for long, always looking over my shoulder. No one followed me. No one seemed to know or care about the midnight broadcast. Maybe I had escaped its clutches. Maybe it had all been a terrifying coincidence. But the fear lingered, a shadow clinging to my soul. Then, while scrolling through a true crime forum, seeking some form of reassurance or explanation, I found a new thread. The title sent a jolt of ice through my veins. Radio DJ in Ohio goes missing after airing mysterious tape. My stomach dropped. The victim's name, the name that confirmed my worst fears, was Darren McCullough Jr. The realization shattered any hope I had clung to. The midnight broadcast wasn't confined to the past. It was still active, still claiming victims. Driven by a desperate need for answers, I grabbed my phone and checked my call history, searching for the number of the old man who had played me the tape. The number was gone, deleted, erased as if it had never existed. But I knew better. The midnight broadcast was real, and it was still out there. And I had heard my name. The only question that remained, the question that haunted my every waking moment, was, how long did I have left? Please like and subscribe to help the channel.